Hey Creep Freaks, Ren here. Got a scary and gory Airbnb story for you tonight. Hey, do me a favor. If you're listening and you haven't subscribed, please hit that button. I'd really appreciate it. And now, let's get to tonight's story. The Creepy Cabin, written and read by Ren Bryant. The house loomed in the darkness, its windows like hollowed eyes that watched the group of friends as they approached. The wind howled like a banshee, carrying with it the scent of decay and despair. The front door creaked open, beckoning them inside with a low groan that made them gulp. Jenny, the most adventurous of the group, was the first to step inside. She took a deep breath, inhaling the musty odor of old wood and forgotten memories. "This is gonna be awesome," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. It was Jenny that found the place. She heard about it through one of her Oregon State lacrosse teammates and thought it'd be a good bonding experience. Jenny didn't think her friends were getting along well lately, and she thought a weekend together would help bring them closer together. She lost a few friends lately and didn't want to lose any more. Derek wasn't so enthusiastic. "Are you sure it's a good idea?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly, his fingers rubbing his baby-faced mustache for comfort. Usually Derek had a joke at the ready, but his heart was racing too much to be thinking of anything funny. "This place gives me the creeps," he said. Jake remained silent, as he usually did. His eye scanned the interior of the house behind John Lennon glasses. He felt strangely comfortable in the house in the eastern Oregon woods. It was a sense of familiarity that he couldn't quite place. He thought maybe he had been here before, in another life. Maybe that could be the next title of his poem, he thought, In Another Life. Tara checked her phone for the 100th time. "I don't like the looks of this," she muttered, her fingers tapping nervously on the screen. "The reviews are all over the place. Some say it's the scariest Airbnb they've been to, but others say it's a complete waste of money." But it was too late to turn back now. They had already paid for the weekend, the only weekend that was available, and there were no cancellations. They'd have to make the best of it or eat ramen noodles for the next month. "This is some sick shit," Derek whispered, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Jenny giggled. "Relax, it's just for show. This is what we paid for, remember?" The Creepy Cabin advertised itself as a haunted house for the daring. In its ad copy, it said that one night in the house would forever change your life, and it dared people to book it. Immediately after submitting the reservation, Jenny got an email asking for any special requests. Examples given: bones on the wall, body parts, scarecrows or zombies or corpses in the corner, jars of blood. Jenny thought it was all part of the act, trying to ramp up the fear factor, like how she was given map coordinates instead of an actual address. It wasn't until they drove here that she realized there was no actual address. The house sat isolated deep in the woods, and there was no official road, no house number, only a rutted dirt road that seemed to go on forever. Though the students didn't have any special requests, the house took on the ultimate haunted house vibe. Jenny understood immediately why they advertised it as a haunted house for the daring. The decorations turned the Creepy Cabin into something bizarre. The interior of the cabin was a strange mix of old-fashioned and macabre. The walls were lined with shelves, upon which rested a collection of antique objects, old clocks, tarnished silverware, and rusted tools. In one corner, what looked like a wax statue of a man stood guard, its empty eye sockets seeming to follow the students as they walked by. Bones and skulls adorned the wall, some arranged in pentagrams, others suspended from the ceiling by frayed ropes. The students couldn't help but feel a sense of dread as they gazed upon the grisly displays, wondering if they were real or just expertly crafted replicas. The lights on the house flickered dimly, giving off barely enough light to see. As they made their way through the darkened hallway, the floorboards creaked beneath their feet, and what looked like real hands and fingers stuck out from the walls, as if trying to paw and grab them as they walked by. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, the students settled in for the night, eager to experience the thrills and chills promised by the ad. Though no one was quite sure what to expect, they thought something would happen, that perhaps somebody would knock on the door or rattle a window. Derek jumped at every creak and groan, his eyes constantly looking around the room. Tara tried to calm him down even though she was nervous as well. "That's the point of haunted houses, isn't it?" Tara said. "I mean, to be scared, to have someone jump out from the shadows?" The group tried to distract themselves with games and stories, but they kept looking over their shoulder, expecting something. Though they were all scared, Jenny thought the plan seemed to be working. They were scared together. This could be the mutual experience that they would talk about for a long time, she thought. Jake, who had been lost in thought most of the evening, suddenly spoke up. "There's something strange about this house," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like we're being watched." Jenny rolled her eyes. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, trying to mask her own fear with bravado. "It's just an old house. We locked the door behind us. We checked the rooms. It's not like there's a ghost or anything." But just then, they heard a faint whisper coming from somewhere in the house. It was too quiet to make out the words, but the group froze, their eyes locked on each other's faces. "What was that?" Tara asked, her voice shaking. Suddenly the lights went out, plunging the room into darkness. The group screamed and their hearts pounded in their chest. Tara fumbled for her phone, but it was dead. The others' phones were too. Derek dug for the flashlight in his bag, but it wouldn't turn on. Jake slow-walked his way towards where he thought the light switch was. He flipped the switch repeatedly, but nothing happened. It was as if something zapped all the energy in and around the house. "We paid for this?" Jake asked. "I don't like this," Tara said. "I don't like it at all." With nothing but darkness around and their bones quaking with fear, the group decided not to sleep in separate rooms but to cram into one. They joined hands and together found the bedroom. Tara and Jenny took the bed. Derek and Jake dragged in the mattress from the other bedroom and slept on the floor. The four huddled together in terror in the dark room. Derek tried to land a couple of jokes, but it didn't help. Tara cried. Jake hugged her. Sleep was impossible as they were constantly on edge, waiting for the next bone-chilling sound to fill the air. The rustling of the pine trees outside only added to the unsettling atmosphere. The branches creaked and cracked as the moonlight cast their dancing shadows through the bedroom window. The sounds of birds chirping in the woods outside woke the group up. The sun was shining. They had made it through the night. "Slept like shit," Derek said as he stretched. "Yeah, me too," Jenny added. "Didn't even realize we passed out." "Me either," Jake said. The students groggily stumbled out of their sleeping bags, limbs stiff from a restless night. One by one they rubbed the sleep from their eyes and stood up, still only half awake. Suddenly there was a deafening crash, and the closet door in the corner of the room came to the ground with a loud thud. The sound echoed throughout the small room, and the group jumped back in fright. Out of the closet stepped a monstrous hillbilly, his face etched with lines and scars, as if each mark told a story of violence and brutality. His broad shoulders and barrel chest gave him an intimidating frame under his red flannel shirt. In one beefy hand, he held a bloody axe, its sharp edge glinting in the bright morning light. In the other hand was a noose, swaying ominously as he stepped into the room. The smell of rust and fresh blood filled the air, making the students gag in horror as they backed away. "Check out time!" the man roared, swinging his axe wildly and missing. Its blade drove deep into the wooden floor. "It's real!" Jenny screamed. "It's real! Oh my God, it's real!" The students backpedaled until they hit the wall. They grabbed each other, tears falling down their faces. They whimpered and babbled. Jake put himself in front of his friends, shielding them from the sight of the psycho hillbilly. The man in the red flannel shirt huffed, his nostrils flaring as his muscular frame ripped the axe from the floor. He playfully swung it at the group, his mouth flexing in a demented smile. He snatched Jake by the hair and yanked his head back, exposing his neck. With the axe in the other hand, he came down quick and hard, chopping off Jake's head as easily as decapitating a chicken. Blood sprayed up towards the ceiling like a fountain as Jake's body stood for a moment before collapsing onto the floor. Blood rained down in sticky hot droplets onto the others. The hillbilly shook Jake's head by its hair, making his eyeballs jiggle and the blood pour out of it every which way. Tara's eyes rolled back into her skull as she crumpled to the ground. Jenny and Derek clung to each other, shaking, desperately crying for Jesus, Mommy, anyone. This was no mere haunted house. It was a twisted, depraved playground for some madman's darkest fantasies. The hillbilly grinned like the Cheshire Cat as he bound Jenny and Derek tightly together. Tara's limp body was tied up alone. The blood of their murdered friend pooled around them like a grotesque moat. Jenny's chin sunk into her chest, and her body was racked with uncontrollable sobs. She could barely breathe through the tears. All she wanted was a fun weekend with her friends, but now they were trapped in a nightmare. One of them lay dead, his headless body something so horrible she couldn't look at it. The rest were held captive by an unknown horror, their fates uncertain. Jenny felt the crushing weights of guilt and despair settle over her, suffocating her with the knowledge that it was all her fault. The man slinked back to the closet. After a few moments of rummaging, he emerged with a long, sharp stake in his hand. He grabbed Jake's head by the ears and forced it onto the pointed end of the stake. Jenny and Derek flinched as they heard the sounds of things crunching and squishing inside Jake's head. The hillbilly stepped back as he surveyed his new gruesome display. It was as if he birthed some twisted creation into the world, and he was relishing every macabre detail of his handiwork. "Looks good, don't you think?" the man said. Derek and Jenny cried in fear. "Next guest requested head on poles, like Vlad the Impaler," the man said. "And I'm all out of fresh heads, but I think yours will do just fine." "You're sick," Jenny snapped. She spat at the man. "It's business," the man said. "How do you think I get all the decorations to make this place the way it is? It's all from the previous guests. That's why there's special requests. I need to know if I need to do anything special, like with your friend right here." The man patted Jake on the top of his head like a dog. "Now you just wait right here and I'll be back with some more steaks for you all." Derek and Jenny struggled against their bindings after the man left the room. The rope dug into their skin, making it raw and burn. After what felt like an eternity of twisting and turning, they finally managed to loosen the rope enough to have Jenny pull one hand out, then another. Derek was next. With their hands free, they untied their feet. "We gotta get Tara freed," Jenny said. The sound of the man's footsteps approaching made them freeze. "There's no time," Derek said. Jenny's eyes looked around frantically for an escape route, and her eyes fell on the open window. Without hesitation, they both leapt out and crashed onto the grass below. They scrambled to their feet and ran into the forest as fast as they could, their minds racing with the thought that they may never make it out alive. Screaming from the man about his missing guest echoed out of the bedroom and through the trees. Derek and Jenny stumbled through the dense forest, their hearts pounding in their chest. Branches snagged their clothes and scratched their skin. They could hear the sound of the hillbillies' boots crunching twigs and leaves behind them, getting closer. "We have to keep going," Derek gasped, grabbing Jenny's hand and pulling her along. "We can't let him catch us." Jenny scanned the area, searching for a place to hide. 20 yards ahead, she spotted a small cave. "Over there," she said, tugging Derek's hand in the direction of the cave. They sprinted towards the cave and ducked inside, pressing themselves up against the cool, damp walls. They held their breath, listening for any signs of the man. A few tense, silent minutes passed, the only sound the beating of their schizophrenic hearts in their ears. "Do you think it's okay?" Jenny whispered. A twig snapped in the distance, and then they heard it, the sounds of footsteps approaching the cave. Derek's eyes widened in terror. "We have to go," he whispered. Jenny nodded, and they crept out of the cave. The sounds of heavy stomps behind them made the two take off into a sprint. Suddenly they heard a scream coming from the direction of the house. "Tara!" Jenny gasped, coming to a sudden stop. "We have to go back and help her." Derek hesitated. "But what about the man?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder. The man was out of sight, but they could still hear his rummaging through the forest. "We'll deal with him later," Jenny said. "Right now we have to save Tara. I'm not leaving her behind." They turned and ran back towards the house, their adrenaline-fueled bodies moving as fast as they could. At the house, Tara was covered in Jake's sticky blood, which was now cold. When she came around, she thought it was her blood. It wasn't until she saw Jake's headless corpse next to her that she screamed and nearly fainted again. Jenny and Derek struggled to get Tara free. Her ropes were tied tight and their hands shook with fear and urgency. They knew the man couldn't have been far away. Finally, Derek got Tara's feet undone. "Let's go," he said. "We'll have to get her hands later, but we gotta get out of here." As they fled to the living room, a deafening crash erupted from the front door. The maniacal hillbilly barged in, his face twisted in a grotesque expression of rage. His scarred cheeks twisted as his heaving chest spewed frothy spittle from between clenched teeth. In his grip, he brandished the stake that held the grisly trophy of Jake's impaled head. "You shouldn't have come back," he snarled, grabbing Jenny by the arm. Jenny's screams were broken up by the sounds of tires crunching the pebbled driveway outside the cabin. The hillbilly spun around, and he felt a sharp pang of anxiety in his chest at the sight of a pristine white Volvo XC90 parked just a few yards away. A young couple, their grinning faces eerily out of place in the desolate surroundings, waved at him from inside the car. His breath caught in his throat. "Bedroom," he said to the students. "Now." He shoved Jenny forward and thrust the stake at Tara and Derek. "Sit," the man said when they reached the bedroom. "No words, no movement. I can make it painful. I don't have to use the axe." He locked the bedroom window and the door on his way out. The hillbilly stumbled out of the house, clutching the stake with Jake's severed head. His eyes darted around the yard, searching for signs of any other trouble, but he saw nothing except for the young couple standing by the Volvo. The man was tall and lanky, with thick glasses and messy brown hair that looked like it hadn't been combed in weeks. The woman was petite and pretty, with curly blonde locks cascading down her back. They were locked in a passionate embrace, their hands wandering over each other's bodies. The hillbilly cleared his throat, and the couple jumped apart, startled. I'm sorry, we're a bit early, the young man said with a sheepish grin. I hope that's not a problem. The hillbilly's eyes caught the sun, which was high over the trees. He cursed under his breath. He had lost track of time, so focused he was on the hunt. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The kills were supposed to be quick and clean. The heads impaled on spikes and put outside the cabin like Vlad the Impaler. It was the guest special requests. He always fulfilled the guest special requests. It's what got the place the 5-star rating. But now the linens weren't even changed. I'm sorry, the hillbilly stammered. It's just that the house isn't quite ready yet. He held up Jake's head. The young couple recoiled in horror. From inside the cabin came a scream for help. What was that? The blonde-haired woman said, turning her head to the sound. It was nothing, the hillbilly said. Why don't you come back in an hour and the house will be ready for you? Another scream from inside the house. This time not just one, but 3. I think someone's in trouble, the man with the glasses said. The hillbilly turned to the house and scratched his chin, thinking through next steps. He could kill this young Volvo-driving couple. He probably should do it right now. They'd be dead at the end of their stay anyways. But he needed their review. He needed them to call and text their friends and say how creepy the cabin was before he turned their bodies into the next guest special requests. Plus, he didn't have a weapon on him. Nothing but a stake with an impaled head anyways. The man with the glasses took the blonde-haired woman by the hand, and they marched towards the house before the hillbilly could stop them. From the front door, Jenny and Derek came running. Tara, still covered in Jake's blood, her hands still tied with rope, ran behind them. What the fuck? Blondie screamed as she jumped back, nearly getting knocked over by the students running from the house. The students ran straight to the Volvo before the hillbilly could react. Jenny jumped in the driver's seat, started the car and floored it, going straight into the hillbilly. The grill of the SUV rammed into him, knocking him over, but because of his massive size, it didn't really do any damage. He stood back up, holding the stake with Jake's head on it like a lance, pointing it towards the vehicle. Jenny backed up and revved the engine, then put it into drive. The wheels spun, kicking up rocks and dirt. Jake's head cracked and split on the car, then the hillbilly's head slammed against the hood. The new guest watched, their jaws slack as the Volvo drove with the hillbilly as a hood ornament towards the cabin. Eat shit, motherfucker! Jenny yelled as the SUV crashed into the corner of the house, sending chunks of wood and insulation flying. She backed up. The hillbilly lay wounded on the ground. The stake, with now only the top half of Jake's head on it, stuck out of the car's grill. Jenny backed up and ran the hillbilly again and again, running him over, tearing his flesh with the tires, compressing bones, flattening him. When there was nothing left of the hillbilly but roadkill, Jenny jumped out of the SUV and tossed the keys to the stunned new guest. Whoa, the man with the glasses said. This is the coolest haunted house experience ever. 5 stars. On the ride out of the forest, Jenny took out her phone, dialed 911, and explained all that happened. As they merged onto the highway, they heard the sirens. Jenny, Tara, and Derek exchanged a solemn nod. It's okay, Jenny said. We're going to be okay. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The group of friends tried their best to move on from the traumatic experience at the Airbnb house, but the memories lingered like a shadow. They each dealt with the trauma in their own way. Tara found solace in therapy, slowly peeling back the layers of her pain. Derek tried to see the humor in the situation, and created a comedy routine out of the experience, but he knew deep down it was just a way to mask his fear. Jenny, on the other hand, she remained quiet, her pain a constant reminder of the tragedy that had occurred. The whole point of the weekend was to give the group something they would never forget, something they could bond over. It was all so bittersweet. A few months after the experience, Jenny received an email from the host of the creepy cabin. She hesitated for a moment, then clicked on the email. The message was polite and friendly, but it made her blood run cold. The owner thanked her for choosing the creepy cabin and mentioned that they had received some positive feedback about her stay. Jenny wondered who could give such feedback. Was it the man with the glasses? Blondie? She thought all of this was over with the death of the hillbilly. She ran over that bastard until he was flat as a pancake. Wasn't he the Airbnb host? Wasn't he the owner? Then came an offer, a repeat customer discount for another night in the cabin. Jenny's first instinct was to delete the email and never look back, but she didn't. A gnawing ache consumed her, a bottomless pit of grief that would never heal. No matter how hard she tried to escape it, the pain followed her everywhere, a relentless specter that haunted her every waking moment. She took a deep breath and replied to the owner, accepting the offer, but this time saying she would be a single guest. As she hit send, she felt a mix of excitement and dread. Was she making a huge mistake? Or was she about to uncover the secrets of who was behind the creepy cabin once and for all? Only time would tell.